guys, today I thought I'd pop on and tell you a story. Please, if before I start, if you can hear anything, it's probably the hamster. She is in her ball having a roll around because she needs it and she's awake. If you can hear a bark, it's Jake, who is sleeping to my side right now on a blanket that realistically needs to be moved, but it's in my sensory corner. And 3, I do not have my glasses, which is why I look different. I promise they're just broken. It's not that they got eaten or anything. I don't know why my brain went straight to eaten, probably because I own a lot of animals. But they're broken, the arm fell off, so they're going to the opticians. I thought today I would, because I often talk about it but then realise not everyone knows about it, I would talk about why I was put in care and why I was adopted out of family. Plus, the amount of times that I get asked that question in a weekly basis when people notice my medical alert bracelet because it says adoptive mummy, not mummy or mum or dad or adoptive daddy. I thought I would explain. Now, a trigger warning, because this does involve abuse and neglect and various other forms of scary stuff that I don't want anyone stumbling across my video and causing themselves or others issues because of what they've heard. Okay, right, so I was put into care along with my sister, who I won't speak about in this video for her own sake and her own privacy, because, well, this is my channel and my sister hasn't agreed to be put into this, so I'm not going to put her into it because that'd just be mean. Yay for progress. I was put into care along with my sister, as I've already stated, at 5 months old. Now, before this, I was living with my birth mum. My birth mum didn't have the most stable growing up or the most stable life before she had children. Her mum, my nanan, had 7 children, 3 different husbands. She couldn't keep track of half her kids. Like, the majority of them ended up in care, in and out of care, back to her, back to their dads. Like, she just couldn't keep a hold of her children. They were raised Roman Catholic, so that was what we were raised as well. My birth mum has now got married again, and has my sister and my younger sister and my younger brother with her and her new husband. Again, I'm not mentioning names throughout this because I don't feel it's appropriate. I don't want people finding out who they are based on their names or based on their places of origin, if that makes sense. So I'm not going to mention any of that. I'm just going to give you a basic overview. My birth mum had 6 siblings. She had a mum and a stepdad and then a stepdad because she obviously had her original dad as well. Now, this is going off my mum's account because I recently got my care records, but going off my mum's account, my birth mum's account, she was abused several times during her time with both foster carers and her birth family, her biological family. She claims that she had relationships with different men from about the age of the man was 15 years her senior, but she was 8. So she claims she had relationships from about the age of 8 with the man that's 15 years her senior, and she's claiming that is my sister's, I think my sister's dad. We don't exactly know how this works, but she's claiming that my granddad, so my mum's stepdad, is my dad. Now, that would get complicated in terms of like how this would work, because it would mean that theoretically I'm also Bryn's aunt and cousin and sister. Like, that doesn't work in my head, but that's what my birth mum's claiming. The reason we were put into care at 5 months and well, the reason I was put into care. Brindley, let's try that again. My sister was put into care with me because they thought that was the best for her as well. After fighting for months for my sister to be put into care with me, I was put into care because of an act of abuse that happened when I was in hospital with my mum. My mum tried to kill me. Now, my mum tried to kill me 3 times. She will not admit to any of them. She doesn't admit to any of them, but the 3rd time is when they called social care and when they called police. And the health visitor wanted to call police the 2nd time, but the social worker, refused. I don't know why they refused. I find that's really stupid. Like, if you know your child that you are supposedly being cared for and caring for because that is your role, is being abused, then surely you'd want to fix that. Now, I was put into care because my mum tried to kill me using a blanket. I went white. I went blue. I wasn't breathing. She went to get a nurse who found me with a blanket over my face and red marks here. That literally, because my mum had been like that with a pillow or a blanket or something. We're still not sure which. And I was then taken away. I don't quite know where I was taken. I'm assuming the NICU. And police were called. Now, because police were called, my mum had to be talked to and things had to be asked of her. And that's quite difficult considering my mum has something called Munchausen syndrome by proxy, which is now known as fictitious disorder and fictitious disorder by proxy. Now, for those who don't know, it is a disorder where the person, usually a mother or a carer of a child or a person, regardless of age, either puts on or makes worse an illness or a sickness or a disorder that a person has or doesn't have, but they've put on that person or says that person has to get attention and sympathy for themselves. So, like the Gypsy Rose case, I'm pretty sure that's a big case in the UK and in the US. Like, loads of people have heard of it. Lacey Spears, Gypsy Roses, Mum, they had Munchausen syndrome by proxy. My mum has Munchausen syndrome by proxy. She will not admit to it, but it is literally a case of she made me appear sick or made my illnesses worse by not giving medication, giving too much medication, and various other ways that I'm obviously not privy to because I've only read bits of the care notes before I had to throw them to the ground and freak out because I was scared. But she was ill. She didn't get the mental health help. She refused any sort of help in the home. But I think that's because if she got the help, she was foster care, that's not the right word, that the social care requested or asked her whether she wanted, they would see that she wasn't caring for us correctly. Or sometimes people with Munchausen syndrome by proxy or Munchausen syndrome can be seen as overly caring for their child or person they're caring for. So especially if it's a mother, because they're known to be doting on their child and caring for their child and all the rest of it, sometimes it can be seen as being overprotective, helicopter parenting, and seen as like someone being overly caring towards that person, which is why it doesn't get caught for a very long time. Pretty sure my mum only got caught because she tried to kill me, and because it was obvious by that point that she had tried to kill me. I think if she hadn't have tried to kill me, she wouldn't have got caught and I would have still been stuck with her. And she would have probably not been interviewed by police, probably not have had to, had us taken away from her. I'm very aware of the damaging effects her own bringing up had on her. I mean, who wants to be one of 7, let alone have three different men walk in and out your life, and your mum only be bothered about men? Like, that's got to be damaging to any child. But that doesn't give you an excuse to abuse your own child, to hurt other children, because that's what she did when she was in care herself. She abused other children, and there was claims made against my mum that she'd abused other children. Now, there is claims that she sexually assaulted other children, and she physically abused other children, and she was moved for breaking house rules, as in foster care house rules, several times. So I'm thinking that somewhere in there she has a personality disorder that wasn't treated, or she has some form of disability that wasn't treated. Now, it is stated in the records that the police think she has that, because when they took me away from her, she was seen by psychiatrists and psychologists and police and interviewed, and they thought that she had a borderline personality disorder or something similar, but she wouldn't admit to it. She wouldn't accept any help. She wouldn't go to therapy. Bearing in mind, if she'd gone to the therapy, if she'd gotten the help, she could have kept us. However, she didn't get to keep us. We were taken away, put into emergency foster care, which is like interim foster care, where you go from your parents, your biological family, to someone they've rang, like a social worker's rang, saying, we've got this child or these children, are you able to take them? Obviously, maybe not along those lines, but that's a very basic kind of conversation that they'll have, and then they'll ring round until they get a yes. And then while the child is there, the social worker will then be doing more work and more paperwork, and probably a lot more than we think they do, in order to get the child a more permanent foster home, a more permanent placement. Quite a lot, siblings get split up. Quite often, siblings don't get to stay together. It gets complicated, it can get scary, it can get very traumatising for the child when they're not kept with siblings. However, sometimes it's not possible. Please keep that in mind if you're ever going to foster. If you can, keep siblings together. So we spent one night with interim foster carers, and then went to a more permanent, stable foster home, who, by this point, this foster parent that we went to, I'm not going to name names, she had 2 sons of her own and a husband and a dog, which I didn't know about until I read the notes. I couldn't remember a dog, but I was quite young. I was very, very young at this point. I was maybe just over a year. So I don't remember. And because we were in care, my birth mum was fighting to get my sister back, but not me. I've learnt that when reading the notes. Apologies, I look a bit strange. I'm trying to itch my shoulder. Now, we did get visits. Like, with our birth mum, we got visits weekly, twice a week. And they were supervised, so like someone like a social worker, health visitor, my foster mum, she would watch and she would make sure that nothing untoward happened, that like no abuse happened, no attacking happened, no any sort of neglect happened. And they would last a certain amount of time, and then my birth mum would go. However, before those visits, and like when I was still with my foster mum and not with my mum, she would still have to tell the court, the social worker, and my birth mum if anything happened to me. Like, I fell out of a high chair once and she had to write it down, she had to make a report, she had to take me to hospital, she had to then ring the social worker to then inform my birth mum, because everyone who has legal responsibility for you when you're in care still needs to know, especially when you're that young and you can't tell anyone, whether something happened to you, or if you're hurt, or if you go to hospital, or if you want to go on holiday, you've got to get permission. It's a lot of permissions and a lot of paperwork and a lot of extras just to keep a child safe when they're in care. And if you don't do the paperwork, you can get in trouble for it. So you have to do a lot of paperwork, you have to do a lot of signing off on things, I guess you could say, and making sure that certain things get done by certain times and certain things get written down, and like even just as basic as what you gave the child, where the child goes to the doctors, how often the child goes to the doctors, like all of that has to be noted down when you're in care. So my foster mum had a lot of paperwork to do because she had not just me but my sister as well. But because my birth mum was still involved at that point, she also had to make sure to inform my birth mum, who I don't think came to visit when I was in hospital. If my foster mum was there, I don't think she was allowed to. I don't quite know. I mean, she was allowed to visit in the home and like at supervised visits, but I don't think she could just rock up like, oh, hi kids, because I think there was a little bit of a worry that we might be taken, just due to the way my birth mum had behaved previously. Now, because I was so little, I don't know actually, I probably did come with some things, but not everything. Older kids who have been in care often do come with things. You will find that. Like, they'll come with random little things. Like, if they've come straight from their birth parents, they'll probably come with something that they find comforting, like a toy. They'll never come with animals, like real animals, but they'll come with toys, they'll come with clothes. Like, if they've come straight from school, they might just come with what's on their back, though. So please, if you are fostering and you know the child, like you don't know the child, but you know what they're coming from, because social care do tell you on the phone they're coming from this, please, if you can, if you've got the time, if you've got the resources, make sure that they've at least got the basics for when they get here. Like, I'd say from 9 and upwards, deodorant, toothbrush, toothpaste, clean clothes, even if it's just a set of pyjamas, blanket, stuffy. Like, a lot of that is just basic healthcare stuff. Like, even a toddler needs toothbrush, toothpaste, blanket, stuffy. But from 9 onwards, you definitely need to include, like, I would include deodorant, because you don't know what the child's coming from. Now, my foster carers, when I was in care, they didn't know they knew what I was coming from, but they probably didn't know from the start what had gone on or what I'd be coming with. I don't even know what I came with. And I've got the care records. I've got no idea what I came with. I've got literally no clue what I came with, apart from probably like pyjamas or whatever my mum would dress me in that day. And my sister, of course, but she's not necessarily something I would come with. Like, I couldn't physically pick up my sister, I was too little, because I was like little at this point. Probably came with a toy and whatever I was wearing that day, and that's probably it. So, like, if anything comes from parents, biological or foster, and they come with that stuff, please don't throw it away. Please, at the end of the visit, give it to them. Like, at the end of the time they're with you, give it back to them. You don't know what it means to them. I still keep stuff that my foster carers gave us. Well, I think they gave my parents, my adoptive mummy and adoptive daddy. I've still got stuff that they gave me years ago now. I mean, I'm 28 and I'm 29 this year, and I've still got photo albums they made when I was 1. So it does mean stuff because it's memories, it holds love, it holds care, it holds things to remember. It is the most wonderful thing to have when you already grew up knowing that you didn't have a lot, or you grew up knowing that you, like me, I don't feel as though my birth mum wanted me. I feel as though I've been thrown in the trash, and I really struggle because I still hold on to that trauma of being abandoned, being essentially thrown in the trash because she didn't want me, because she we found out, only wanted my sister. Like, she only fought for my sister. She wanted my sister back, but she didn't fight for me. And that, when I found that out at 8, almost 9 years old, really hurt me. It really broke me. It made me remember this trauma all over again. The fact that I was abused. The fact that my birth mum tried to kill me 3 times. The fact that she didn't argue for me. The fact that she didn't, when she came to visit us in foster care, she was more bothered about my sister than me. The fact that even now, 25, 26 years later, she refuses to speak to me, but she's quite happy to talk to bring things and to send things for my sister. And even like when we were in care, and she had the option, like, it's called the letterbox system. I don't know if they have it anywhere else, but they have it where I live. You have the choice, well, your biological parents have the choice to write to you via social care and to update you on life, and you and your foster parents and adoptive parents can write back and update them via social care. It always goes via a social worker. It never ever goes via personal info, just because that's a safety thing with a lot of biological and adopted or fostered children. Like, you, especially if they've been violenced or abuse, etc. in the home, like, it is a big thing. It always goes through a social worker. I still hold the trauma. I still hold the fact that my mum didn't want me. I still get upset about it to this day because it hurt my heart knowing that I wasn't wanted. It hurt my heart knowing that my mum only wanted my sister. And the fact that she now has kept my sister and my brother, my other sister, sorry, not the one that was adopted with me, my other sister and my brother. And she got remarried, and we didn't even know about it until my sister chose to write to her at 26, possibly 25, 26, and get a response. I wrote to her after years of no contact. I got a response. It wasn't a nice response. I tried writing 3 more times. I still got a horrible response. I've also learned that my mum still doesn't take responsibility for what she did to me. So that's not a nice reality to live through. But there are some good things to being in care. I mean, there are shitty reasons, and it was a really crappy time. Like, I don't understand why I was put into care. Well, I do. I understand why I was put into care, but also I don't. Like, at that time, I probably didn't understand why I was being taken away from my mum. But there's some really shitty things about being in care, but also some good things. Like, you're safe. You're with safe foster carers. You're more than likely away from people who are hurting you. You get to still see your biological parents if deemed appropriate. You're probably more than likely still in the same area, and if you're not, the foster carer will make an effort to make sure you can still see friends and people who care about you, as long as it's, again, deemed appropriate by the court and social services. And quite a lot of the time when you're in care, there is activities that are put on by social care for fosterers, for people in care, for foster youth, for adopters. Like, it can be a good thing as well. No matter how irritated I am by the fact that I wasn't wanted, by the fact that I got really upset, by the fact that my birth mum still doesn't want me 20 odd years later, I am beyond grateful for the social care system, for the foster system, for my parents, my adoptive parents, and my birth parents for giving me life, even though I've got no idea who my dad is. And my mum will not admit to the fact that she is mentally or physically or anything like that ill. I am beyond grateful. Now, I was put into care for a really stupid, obvious reason. I was abused and neglected. Seriously neglected, seriously abused. But some people are put into foster care voluntarily, and they will sit there and they will be like, they'll ask to go into care if they're not happy at home. And that is totally acceptable too. Like, honestly, if you're not happy at home, don't just go into care because you've had an argument with your parents. That's not an appropriate resource use. If you are being hurt, if you are being abused or neglected, talk to someone, get advice, make sure it's the right choice. Because it may well be that your parents just don't know any different. Like, I mean, that doesn't make it right. But if your parents don't know any different, talk to someone first. Maybe they can help you and your parents get better. But do not use up resources for people who genuinely need them before you've had a conversation. Please, of all things, use your common sense. 20 years ago when I was in care, 27? No, hang on. I can't do math in my head. When was I in care? 26 years ago when I was in care. A lot of these resources were crap. They're not as crap now. Please, if you need to use them, but don't take them from someone who genuinely needs them. Yes, going into care is terrifying. I was terrified. More than likely, I was also a complete and utter screaming, detached child who wanted just to be with certain people. But it's a necessary part for me. It's part of my story and I'm thankful for it. I had to be in care, I had to go to care, I had to be safe, and that's what happened. Now I'm a grown adult and I can take time to process that. I mean, I went to therapy, I can spend time doing what I love. I mean, granted, I'm still desperately traumatised and I hate going to sleep because I'm terrified of the fact that she's going to come back and try and kill me again. Even though I know rationally that isn't what's going to happen, I know that I am safe. I know that I wouldn't be who I am today without what happened to me. And I'm incredibly grateful for my story. Now, I was put into care for an obvious reason. And I'm okay with that. I was put into care because my mum was abusive and neglectful, much like my sister was. One day I hope that she's going to come to her senses and my mum is going to realise that actually she doesn't need to blame me for what happened. She doesn't need to be angry with me. She doesn't need to be pissed that I'm asking questions. And one day I may well get the answers I deserve. Until then, I'm okay with that. I hope this cures some people's curiosity, and if you've got any questions, please feel free to leave them down below. I am going to go rescue my hamster before she runs off the table in a ball, and I will see you guys later. Bye!